Terrence Fox with iAdvise. Welcome to this morning's live stream, Fueling a D2C Strategy with Rich and Personalized Customer Engagement. And happy August, the time of year for last-minute vacations or staycations, and the time of year where it's probably appropriate to cut the sweatpants you've been wearing since March at the knees for some more weather-appropriate attire. And it's been a wild summer, to say the least. If we look at sweatpants as any indicator for the retail market and what's going on today, we've seen the explosion of the top half dress code, I'll say, lead to pain for brands like Neiman Marcus, Men's Warehouse, Joseph A. Bank, Loft, etc. This casualization for today's consumer, as one example, has changed quite a bit. And still leaning on the sweatpants example for change today, retail sales for clothing dropped 79% in April, the largest decline ever. But sweatpants sales soared 80%. So obviously times have changed. Buying has changed. Items that were once deemed essential have been deprioritized, like business and work attire. And in a previous live stream, I mentioned a stat by McKinsey that says 75% of consumers have changed how, where, and why they're buying products today. So for brands, the need to develop a relationship and create a lasting, memorable experience with their consumer is increasingly important today. Now, one such item that I'll put next to sweatpants for this coronavirus is the same item that they're also using to shop with today, their cell phone. Whether they're shopping from the lawn, their couch, consumers are leaning on their cell phones more than ever as the focus has become increasingly digital. And if you're anything like me and you're concerned about damaging your phone or have a young one around the house that seems to have water constantly hovering over your phone, you've likely got your phone covered with a protective case. And in this example, it's an OtterBox life-proof case. Now, looking at OtterBox, like many companies and startups, they began out of a garage. They were founded in 1998 in Fort Collins, Colorado, and they designed premium protective cases for cell phones and smartphones and tablets. A team of innovators. You may also know them for their other product line, the outdoor coolers, and the commercials they had running for those coolers where they actually showed a bear attacking the cooler to show off its resiliency and durability. But they're also a team that's focused on giving back, and they have their Otter Cares Foundation, which has been committed to inspiring kids to change the world for the better. Now, our guest today is the Director of E-commerce for OtterBox and its brands, which also includes LifeProof and Leviri Packaging Solutions. He's an innovator, former pro hockey player, and all-around digital guru, Patrick Waller. Pat, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah, loud and clear. Thanks for having me, Terrence. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you, of course. And for those of you who don't know, Pat and I each have young ones at home, so we're probably a little over-caffeinated and overwhelmed for this conversation today. But before we jump into business, Pat, I wanted to ask you a few questions I like to ask our guests to get kind of a pulse on what you're learning, what you're trying to learn, etc. So can you share an example of a book you've read lately or something that you're reading currently that you've enjoyed or has taught you something?
Well, the book that I read most often and probably from start to finish on a daily basis is Goodnight Moon, to my 1-year-old twins. Don't know if you've read that one yet.
Yes, I have it written on the back of my hand. Remember.
But that's a good one that can go on forever as you say goodnight to everything else in the room. But on a more serious note, a couple of good books one that I recently finished is 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell, which is a really good one about leadership principles. And one that's probably very relevant to today's conversation is a book called They Ask, You Answer by Mark Sheridan, where he talks about how online experiences can really be focused on answering customer questions to drive your overall business.
Okay, very interesting. And Pat, the next question I wanted to ask you, and I wanted to ask this because I can think of my own experiences. The question is, tell us about a memorable digital experience you had and if you are still shopping from that brand today, and why you are. But the reason I like to ask this question is because I've had experiences where someone's gone above and beyond or shown themselves, I'll say, given far more resources to me than maybe I deserved, and maybe I didn't even end up buying. But that sort of experience has kept me coming back and improved my retention as a customer. Do you have a similar experience, or do you have a brand that you prefer because of something like this?
So I'm typically on the other end of this question. It's one of my favorite questions to ask people. And I feel like Amazon comes up as the most answered. I'm really impressed. One digital experience I've had most recently this week, a local restaurant down the street from me in Toronto has moved all of their pickup orders online via a website. And it's a really impressive, seamless experience to order online, check out via credit card, and then you can just pick up at the restaurant. More around kind of direct to consumer. I actually bought my parents a Casper mattress online. They were having a hard time finding a mattress during COVID, and I went in and did it all for them via Casper. That was a really good digital experience, from search all the way to MPS, follow-up emails. I think they're a good example. One thing I would add to this is I'm always surprised that nobody's really figured out every step of the process yet. I think there's a good example of each stage of a consumer journey. However, it's very difficult for any brand or retailer today to really make it seamless from start to finish to restart. So, we just need to continue innovating together to see how do we conquer that one day.
Yeah, and innovating is the right word, because I know I mentioned that stat with McKinsey: 75% of consumers are changing where they buy, how they buy, etc., and loyalty to the brand they maybe pursued prior to the pandemic is up in the air. So if you can show that you're an innovator, and show that, of course, that you are accommodating, maybe is the word, during this process, it's going to win you the business. And I like the example of Casper. I will add that fascinated to receive a mattress from Casper and watch it open up as well. Super cool. So, all right, let's get to business, Pat. So tell us a little bit about your market and how this has obviously evolved over the years.
So I lead our e-commerce business, both B2C and B2B, globally for OtterBox. You mentioned a little bit of background on OtterBox. We started off as a protective case company to help protect pocket-sized belongings, and really grew as smartphone devices grew in the market. Shortly after that, we actually grew our brands to have the LifeProof brand that you mentioned, which focus on water-centric outdoor consumer opportunities. And then most recently, we've moved into the Livery brand space, where we're doing reusable boxes for home delivery of wine, meal kits, and perishable groceries. So we cover multiple industries depending on which brand you're looking at and the products that we're focused on. However, my area is all e-commerce, and so how can we use websites or online platforms as a tool to service our customers in any of those markets with those three major brands?
And so why would you say is D2C, the direct-to-consumer, a key objective for OtterBox?
So our direct-to-consumer business has always been important for OtterBox. The OtterBox brand is over 20 years old, and if you can imagine, an entrepreneur starting a company 20 years ago, Kurt Richardson, our founder, he actually included his personal phone number on our website at the time to make sure that he was able to get customer sentiment and get customer feedback about his product. As a proud engineer, he wanted to stand by his high quality products. And ever since then, we've done the same approach. And so we have our customer service phone number always available for consumers to call. However, for us, with the growing e-commerce opportunity in the world and the shifting landscape of consumers shopping more and more online, that's become more and more important for us today, not only just from a sales perspective, but also just from a consumer service perspective. How do we support our customers on a day-to-day basis online within their shopping journey?
And so let's talk a little bit about your online sales strategy. What would you say is your main strategy to drive customer acquisition for OtterBox?
So customer acquisition, I typically like to bridge out beyond just an acquisition strategy. So our strategy overall is to really, how do we grow our brand within our target market? If it's OtterBox or LifeProof, it would be smartphone users. How do we enable them to stay connected? And we strongly believe that once consumers use one of our products from either of those brands, they will most likely use it for life. And that brand loyalty really fuels our overall strategy, whether it comes to acquisition or retention, because we're not only focused on driving new customers to our store, but we're also focused on how do we invest in our website or our online experience to be able to support existing customers through things like reviews, frequently asked questions, even warranty support if the product's getting banged up. So we firmly believe that our direct-to-consumer relationship doesn't really start or stop at that acquisition phase or at a purchase phase. It's really how do we balance our overall pre-purchase and post-purchase service that differentiates our online strategy.
And so I know you've called on your expert community. You have passionate customers that share advice online. I'd like to say I'm one such customer. This is a LifeProof that's very old, so it does look a little beat up, but it takes only having one cell phone dropped in water to really get behind protecting these things. Why did you decide to call on your expert community as a part of this strategy?
So I really believe that e-commerce strategies are self-service focused. And since the .com boom, consumers have been going online to really service themselves rather than going to a store. However, you can only self-service so much. And as you grow as a company, you need to look at how can you evolve on that service level, and how can you evolve at a scalable way. And so we've been continuously looking at our website to say, how do we optimize that content and functionality for self-service, but how do you take that to the next level? And if somebody can't answer the important question that they're looking to answer, how do we then look at other services such as the expert community that I advise provides, that's able to assist that shopping experience? And we've really seen strong results from a chatbot, live chat support perspective. And if those still don't answer the questions, then we always have phone calls and emails available, making sure that we're able to answer any customer question our customers have.
And without going into anything private, have you received or had any other results that you've been particularly proud of from this sort of work?
Yeah, I've been really impressed with the results. We found that our web store guests have been engaging really well with the chatbots and the live chat service regularly. It's been great to see, what type of questions our consumers are asking. It is a small portion of our overall guests. Obviously we have a high volume website experience across all of our brands, but there are those moments where customers need to ask a question, and if a chatbot or a live expert is able to help and answer that question, it's worked out really well. And beyond just answering those questions, the expert community has actually been really helpful, sharing insights with us on how can we optimize our web content, or how can we improve on our product innovation in the same way that I talked about our founder receiving calls from customers. It's been great to have the expert community share those insights with us.
Yeah, I love that example. And I remember you sharing that with me in the past, putting the cell phone on the site to get customer sentiment and learn a little bit more about what they're enjoying or disliking about the products. So tell us a bit more about these insights that you're capturing today. How are you using them in your strategy, and have you learned anything in particular that you're comfortable sharing?
So the customer insights through the conversations have been wonderful. We have multiple channels of input from customers on a regular basis, specifically to the I Advise conversation insights. We've seen a steady flow of customer feedback when it comes to looking for accessory products such as a belt clip or a screen protector to a case, which will inform us how we merchandise our website. We've also had questions about payment options or shipping, which would change, how we invest in the functionality of our website. And so all of those conversation insights have been really powerful for us to be able to prioritize how do we improve on that overall consumer experience, not just on our website, but also from our product engineering standpoint.
So let's get to the obvious next questions about COVID and obviously its impact. How has it impacted OtterBox?
So COVID's been challenging for all of us as a global community, and it's affected everybody in varying ways. For us, first and foremost, we've really been focused on our employees and our consumers, on how can we support them in such a difficult time with empathy. Our e-commerce business has seen a significant increase in traffic, which I think a lot of people would expect as brick and mortar stores were closed for safety reasons. People have been going online, and we've seen them come to our web platforms, significant increase year over year. And so we've been working really hard on how do we support these new visitors. Some of them have never actually been to our website, maybe a website before. So how can we support them through the browsing experience, like if you were walking into a store, as well as supporting frontline workers with discounts to make sure that they're getting the protective cases that they need to be able to work and to stay safe in their workplaces, as well as just supporting our internal teams to understand how can we keep up with consumer demand or consumer questions in a scalable way, not only just for the short term, but also opening up a lot of opportunities for long-term investments to make sure that we're able to build this out as the consumer continues to shift online.
Yeah, and I do love that you led with caring for your employees and showing empathy for your own team. I talk a lot about the always-on consumer, and now more than ever, with the increasing focus on digital, we have the 24/7 always-on consumers sitting on their couch, on their mobile phone, wherever they may be, shopping and witnessing and watching you as a brand. And one of the things, and I believe it was McKinsey, they said that's increasingly important is customers want to see that brands are caring for their own employees, right? And we've seen wonderful examples of this in the States with Lowe's and Home Depot giving hero pay, they've called it. So it's nice to see that it's obviously something very critically important for your team also. So my last question for you, Pat, is you've mentioned, and I like to ask this question because with the COVID pandemic, we've seen a tremendous jump in traffic. For a majority of my clients, it's about a 25% increase, sometimes higher than that in terms of monthly traffic. You mentioned automation earlier. Can you tell us a bit about how these automation features and self-service and things like that have helped you deal with increasing traffic?
Yeah, so the automation opportunity kind of never ends, and certain aspects of the website we've added basic functionality that might not sound like an innovative, groundbreaking automation feature, but can actually really help with a specific consumer pain point that they weren't able to do before, or that they were asking one of our live agents or our customer service representative. And so we've been taking in a lot of that qualitative feedback and looked at how can we improve this and make it faster for our consumers to self-serve. And the chatbot has been one way that we've been able to do that. So for very simple, quick questions, users are able to use a chatbot both from a pre-sales perspective and a post-sales perspective to be able to get support if they're not able to find the answers already on the website or not able to get the service that they were hoping for. And so the chatbot automation has really helped us keep up with demand on those questions and continue to evolve how can we serve our consumers better in a scalable way. And so, it's been really good most recently. And one thing I would say for other people that are looking to how do you add automation, it doesn't always need to be a very complicated new service. One thing that I advise has been really good at is starting small and just saying test it out and review the data, and then see how do you potentially scale it, or how do you reinforce it through more automation, so that it can self-service itself. So that's been really good.
Well, wonderful. And Pat, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and a fellow new dad going through some challenges. So if there are any questions, I know Fritz will populate them now. If not, and you're listening, please feel free to leave a comment or a question, and we'll follow up with you. Yes, there it is. Okay, so leave your questions in the comments below. But Pat, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for your time today, and I wish you a happy, healthy Q4.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Nice to see you. Now, for everyone else, thank you for tuning in today. Obviously, if you liked our content and liked this and found this conversation with Patrick Waller of OtterBox insightful, please remember to subscribe, like, share, and do everything you can to make sure that you're seeing and available for the next conversation, which will be September 8th, where we're going to actually review Q2 and Q3 and look forward into Q4, what we can anticipate and expect for this holiday shopping season. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you all. We'll talk soon.